Hello and welcome to Livestream, the show that takes up issues that matter the most to you. Tonight we discuss India's alarming water crisis. 60 crore people are under extreme water stress of some kind or the other. 21 major cities in the next 2 years will have no groundwater, and 2 lakh people die every year due to water scarcity or related health issues. So it is an alarming matter indeed. So we asked tonight, who is to blame for this burgeoning water crisis, and can we really turn the clock back on the water crisis in India? Joining us on the show tonight, Rudresh Kumar Sugam, who is the Senior Program Manager for Water Program at the Center for Science and Environment, Vimlendu Jha, environmentalist, and Himanshu Thakkar, who is a coordinator for South Asia Network of Dams, Rivers and People, also joining us on Skype. And let me go across to Vimlendu Jha, environmentalist, to begin with. And Vimlendu, this really has come to a situation where every drop really needs to be saved. I mean, we're looking at the numbers there. 60 crore people in some sort of water crisis, and by 2020-21, cities won't have groundwater. It is really a scary scenario.
Absolutely, and this is a statistics that's been known to us for a long time. We always have heard that almost 2 billion people out of 6 billion earlier, and now 7 billion people did not have access to safe drinking water. In last several decades, every visual of a river that we've had is actually gray and brown and therefore polluted. It's now that last 2 weeks there's been a greater and a heightened conversation around state of water, but we actually have worked very hard to arrive at this scary point, because we are talking about our groundwater, which is in distress. Most of our groundwater, in fact, in Delhi, there was an observation made by the Supreme Court that almost 90% of Delhi's groundwater is in critical situation. We've heard about Gurgaon for almost a decade. We've been talking about how water in Delhi NCR, especially in Gurgaon, the water table has gone down, water has contaminated. So it's all about bad management, because of which we have actually arrived at this point. And basic right to life is actually challenged because of this condition right now.
Right, absolutely. And Rudresh Kumar, take that point forward, the fact that groundwater situation is very severe, and the fact that recently a former ISRO scientist actually said that the agriculture share in the total water usage must go down by 50%, but that's a huge number. How are we going to attain that number?
Yeah, so I think you have pointed out at the right direction. Right now what is happening is, across the country there is not proper pricing mechanism for different crops. So what farmers are doing is they are choosing cash crops, and they are not choosing crops which are suitable to their local condition. Now to change this is really difficult, because none of us actually work in a way that is kind of environment friendly. What how we work is to sustain ourselves. So in terms of water pricing, when we talk about how water can be used efficiently, we are really lacking these things, because the governance never ever talked about water pricing. What is the correct price of water? We have not discussed this issue.
What do you mean by water pricing?
So by water pricing, I mean, why are people in cities, they have the facilities of using treated water for car washing, for gardening.
Yeah.
They are not paying anything for that.
Yeah.
At the same price, the poor who are living in slums have to pay huge amount of price to get not even that quality of water.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're wanting, actually that's an important point, that the rich and the poor divide is so intense when it comes to water usage and clean water, because 75% of our water is contaminated. That's a worrying sign. We have a caller calling in, Pradeep Murthy, who's calling in from Pune. Pradeep Murthy, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I want to ask that, who is responsible for this water contamination? I mean, control the water pollution is the responsibility of the government, no? So why there are not proper drainage lines in the city, or you are saying that now?
Yeah, there are no clear drainage lines, and that's true. There is a lot of contamination. Thank you very much for calling us. Before I come back to you, we also have Himanshu Thakkar, coordinator of South Asia Network for Dams and Rivers. And Himanshu Thakkar, when you were speaking to me earlier, you said that the NITI Aayog report, in a sense, under evaluates the enormity of this problem. Explain to us what you meant.
Yeah, firstly, I mean, it's welcome that NITI Aayog has done this report and also warned us about the historical crisis that we are in, and also telling very clearly that it's going to get worse from here. However, the NITI Aayog itself in its report has not followed a transparent, pre-declared, predetermined process. it has lost out a large number of themes and indicators in its ranking system. For example, water is the ecosystem good, it is embedded in the ecosystem, but the whole report has no value for environment, no mention. It has no mention of water pollution as a key aspect of water management. It doesn't look at the rivers and rain as a key resource, and it doesn't look at industrial water use.
I get your point. I get your point. So essentially, we also have to look at the fact that we have to manage our water bodies. We have many water bodies, but we're not managing that. Himanshu Thakkar, I get your point, and I'm going to expand on that in just a bit with our guests here. But we also have several callers calling in. We have Ratin Sharma calling in. Ratin Sharma, what do you have to say?
Thank you. First, I'd just like to expand on the point your panel was just talking about. We've been having decent rain for the last 4 or 5 years. In fact, 4 years back, we had more than adequate rain all over the country. That takes care of all the rivers. That takes care of all the rivulets. That takes care of all the small ponds, lakes, everything that we have all over the country. We shouldn't be having this problem. In 2018, we shouldn't be talking about the past. We shouldn't be talking about the past governance. We shouldn't be talking about all this. NITI Aayog should be taking care and writing all this down in the report. I don't understand why this management issue is happening in this country.
Yeah, we get your point.
Shimla went dry.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about this. I think it's ridiculous.
We're going to get to the Shimla point also. It's a very important point. Ratin Sharma, thanks very much. And Rudresh, talk to us about the fact that, what Himanshu Thakkar and our, people who are calling in are saying, that there are so many water bodies and there are seasons and there are, years, but we have great monsoons. But where is all that water going? And the fact that when we do have water also, 75% of that is contaminated, and the NITI Aayog needs to keep that in mind as well when they talk about water crisis. So very well, people like us could be getting contaminated water in our taps as well.
Of course, I think this is again a very important point that has been raised. Now, when we talk about water storage structures, we generally focus towards the big dams. And what has happened is too much reliance on government for maintaining small water bodies is also wrong, because previously it was community who used to manage these water bodies. Now what is happening is because of too much dependence on the centralized system that the government would provide water, there is no operation and maintenance of these small water bodies. And if you will go to smaller towns…
So you mean to say communities need to provide for their own water systems as well?
They should be taking care of this. This is an important resource. They cannot rely on government only.
Yeah. For example, rain harvesting in big societies where you're buying a property for say 5 crores, but you're not investing in rain harvesting. And I have a caller calling in. Manoj is calling in from Chandigarh. Manoj, make your point. I want to go to Vimlendu after that as well. Manoj, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, actually, it is an important step that at least the government is now recognizing that we are in serious trouble, and it is not going to be in the long term. It is going to be in next few years. But given that the focus is on the headline making news like river linking programs and all these things, which are an environment disaster in themselves. So, what as citizens we can do to to save ourselves from this problem? Because we are in the end going to face this problem, especially in the urban areas where we live in concrete jungles, and we don't have any more avenues for rainwater harvesting and all these things.
Okay. Vimlendu, let's talk solutions also here. As the guests here have also pointed out, that what are the solutions to this? The fact is that should there be a penalty for those who consume more water, consume clean water for example, cleaning their cars? And why is rain harvesting something that is not being done on a large scale? The fact that the water scarcity is such a reality. Vimlendu.
Okay, so the first thing we need to really be very clear about that as much as NITI Aayog, which is a machinery of the government, has come up with this report, we need to also understand that the government is the biggest violator of our natural resources. I'll explain to you how. And second is that the government is the sole custodian of our environmental resource at the same time. Right now, if you look at this current crisis, by the way, NITI Aayog's another document also says that only 50% of irrigation in our country, 50% of agriculture in our country is actually through channel irrigation, which means that 50% depends only on monsoon, and they want to increase that for better food production. So imagine here we are talking about that 80 to 85% of water is actually going to irrigation. You want to increase that further. You want to really make agriculture more irrigation based and channel based in that sense. So we need to really have a comprehensive plan. I think the government needs to understand that if we have a finite resource called called river, surface water and groundwater. How do we manage it? How do we prioritize it? How do we make a policy, both, and not just an environmental policy, but also an economic policy, also an energy policy? Because if you look at where is this stress coming from, this stress is coming because of rapid urbanization. This stress is coming because of our energy demand, because of which these, by the way, Shimla is in crisis because of hydroelectric power plants that's been constructed. Let's be very, very clear that we want to have energy, a lot of energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So it's everything together. We cannot just save 5 buckets of water. Imagine there's been a rule in our country to really have institutional rainwater harvesting systems.
Yeah,
Most of the
I get your
government
point.
do not follow that rule.
Yeah.